The Rusty Ankle was one of those places that time had forgotten. A squat, weather-beaten bar clinging to the edge of Highway 101. Its neon beer sign flickered like a dying heart, barely visible through the rain-smeared glass. Inside, the smell was as permanent as the wood itself. Stale beer, cigarette smoke, and the faint trace of gasoline that clung to the jackets of bikers and long-haul truckers. On this night, the place was nearly empty. A jukebox hummed in the corner, though no one had fed it quarters in hours. The bartender, Frank, moved like a man who had seen every kind of trouble pass through his doors but had long ago learned to let it wash over him like weather. In the farthest booth, with a dim overhead bulb casting a soft circle of light, sat a man who didn't belong. He wore a black T-shirt under a worn leather jacket, jeans faded by years on the road, and a motorcycle helmet resting on the table beside his half-drunk whiskey. His Triumph Bonneville stood outside, rain dripping from its chrome. Keanu Reeves, though here he was no movie star, just another traveler, had pulled out a battered copy of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. He read slowly, letting the words of the philosopher emperor wash over him. Thoughts of resilience, self-discipline, the meaning of justice. This was what he had been chasing on his ride north. Quiet, anonymity, a moment of stillness after the chaos of filming, the grind of fame. No one in the Rusty Ankle recognized him, and that suited him fine. Frank had served his drink without a word. The few locals who lingered, men with faces carved by hard work and harder living, glanced once at the stranger and then looked away. For a time, it was perfect. The storm raged outside, the whiskey burned in his chest, and Aurelius whispered of strength and patience. It might have gone on like that all night, until the door opened. The sound of rain and engines poured in as 5 men stepped through, carrying the storm with them. Leather vests marked them as the Iron Wolves, a motorcycle club whose reputation stretched across the northern counties like smoke. Their leader, Jake Bulldog Morrison, filled the doorway with his size alone, 6'4", a beard as wild as his eyes, arms like steel beams. Behind him slinked Tommy Snake Rodriguez, thin and restless, followed by 3 younger wolves, Rick, Danny, and Pete, faces lit with a hunger for violence and approval. They entered with the swagger of men who owned every room they stepped into. And in their world, anyone who didn't acknowledge that ownership was guilty of disrespect. Keanu Reeves turned a page in his book, and the storm outside was nothing compared to the one that had just walked in. Frank didn't need to see the patches to know trouble. He reached for clean glasses with the care of a man diffusing a bomb and lined them on the bar. Round for the wolves. Bulldog boomed, like a judge announcing sentence. Coins clinked. Bottles hissed. The jukebox, sensing its place, stayed quiet. Keanu didn't look up. He finished a paragraph, slipped a napkin between the pages of Meditations, and took a measured sip of whiskey. The overhead bulb traced a halo on the table. Outside, the rain stuttered against the windows like a nervous heartbeat. Snake's eyes found him first. There was something about stillness that irritated men like him. The way calm looked like judgment. He elbowed Bulldog, chin jutting toward the back booth. Professor in the corner, he smirked. Reading club meets on Fridays, I guess. A ripple of laughter from Rick, Danny, Pete. Small, brittle sounds meant for each other more than for the room. Bulldog swiveled on his stool and stayed. The big man's presence swallowed light. That was his trick. Make the world dimmer and people will mistake it for fear. Keanu glanced up, met Bulldog's gaze for a heartbeat. No challenge, no apology, then returned to his book. Acknowledgement without surrender. It landed like a slap. Snake couldn't let it rest. He slid off his stool and sauntered over with the loose gait of a man whose balance came from menace, not muscle. Boots clicked on the sticky floor. He arrived at the booth and leaned an elbow against the vinyl, breath carrying beer and cigarettes. What's the lesson tonight? Teach. Keanu looked at him, eyes clear, voice even. Marcus Aurelius. Snake blinked. Ancient what now? Philosophy, Keanu said, on how to act, how to bear things. Bear this, Snake snorted, loud enough for the bar. We got our own code. Don't need dead Romans to tell us how to be men. Everyone finds wisdom somewhere, Keanu said, as if explaining weather. Some in books, some in years, some in silence. Snake's grin thinned. The other wolves had pivoted to watch, predators scenting movement. Bulldog stayed where he was, heavy hands bracketing his glass. Rick's knee jittered. Pete, the pup, wore a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Danny's jaw worked, restless, uncertain. Frank cleared his throat. "He's just passing through, Snake." Bulldog didn't look away from the booth. "Let him talk to you that way." Snake straightened, the question a lit fuse in his blood. He tapped the book with one knuckle. "Reading time's over." Keanu closed the cover carefully, napkin marking his place. "I'm just waiting on the storm to pass." Rick called from the bar, eager to score points. "Storm's been over an hour, Professor." A few chuckles, a few hell breaths. Keanu set the book down. "Then I'll finish my drink and go." Snake's smile turned mean. "You'll go when we say. And I say now." Silence tightened. The room leaned in. Keanu's posture didn't change, but something in the air did. The temperature, the density, like the second before lightning decides where to land. "Please step back," he said softly. Snake's eyes brightened at the word please. He reached for the glass, for the man, for the moment, anything to make the room his again. And the storm, finally, picked its ground. Snake's hand moved with the lazy arrogance of a man certain the ending was already written. He reached for the whiskey glass, knocked it from the table with a flick of his fingers. It hit the floor in an amber burst, shards scattering like teeth. "Oops," Snake said, mock innocent, as liquid bled into the grooves of the warped floorboards. The crash was a signal. Chairs scraped. Boots shifted. Rick and Pete slid off their stools. Danny stood straighter. Bulldog rolled his shoulders like a prizefighter about to enter the ring. The pack was circling. Keanu's eyes lowered to the broken glass, then rose back to Snake. His face was unchanged, but the air in the bar shifted, like a door had opened to someplace colder, darker. "That was unnecessary," he said. Bulldog's laugh rumbled. "Unnecessary is you sitting in our place, acting like you don't see us." He pushed away from the bar, each step shaking the wooden floorboards. His shadow draped across the booth like a curtain. "You came into Wolf Country, friend. You don't get to play invisible." "I be minding my own business," Keanu replied, voice quiet but carrying, the way a blade carries edge no matter how it sheathed. Danny chimed in, eager to prove loyalty. "Your business is our business when you sit under our roof." Pete cracked his knuckles. "Maybe teach him some manners." Snake leaned closer, eyes fever bright. "Stand up, Professor." Keanu's posture shifted, barely perceptible, unless you knew what to look for. His weight forward on the balls of his feet, hands loose at the table's edge. Stillness not of passivity, but of a spring drawn tight. "I don't want trouble," he said. Snake sneered. "Too late. You brought it when you walked in." He grabbed Keanu's shoulder, expecting a flinch, a recoil, a scrap of fear he could parade back to his brothers. But what he got was motion, sharp, exact, merciless. Keanu's left hand snapped up, vice tied around Snake's wrist. His right elbow drove upward, burying into Snake's solar plexus. Air whooshed from a biker's lungs in a strangled grunt. Before anyone could register the strike, Keanu twisted, hauled Snake's arm behind his back, and slammed his face into the table hard enough to rattle the salt shaker. Wood groaned. Snake gasped, blood painting the napkin that had marked Keanu's book. 3 seconds. That's all it took. The bar froze. Rick's mouth hung open. Pete blinked like he'd missed a trick. Danny's hand twitched toward his belt but stopped halfway. Bulldog's jaw clenched, confusion mixing with fury. Frank, behind the bar, gripped the baseball bat he kept for bad nights. His knuckles whitened. In 30 years, he'd seen every kind of bar fight. He had never seen this. Keanu looked up, Snake pinned under one hand, and let the silence breathe. "I tried to do this the easy way," he said, his voice so calm it scraped nerves raw. The wolves realized, too late, that they were no longer hunters. They were prey. Pete's grin widened as Snake struggled against the booth, blood streaking down his face. He wanted his chance to prove he was more than just a hanger-on. With a flourish meant for his brothers, he snapped open a switchblade. The steel winked in the dim light, hungry for attention. "Maybe a little steel changes your tune," Pete said, his voice cracking with excitement. The air in the rusty anchor thickened. Frank ducked a little low behind the bar. Danny shifted uneasily, and even Bulldog's eyes flicked to the blade with something like caution. Keanu's gaze moved to Pete, slow, deliberate, unblinking. "Put the knife away," he said. His tone was so flat, so certain, it carried more weight than any shout. Pete laughed nervously. "Oh, what? You gonna quote philosophy at me? Chop me like in the movies." The line drew uneasy chuckles, but the room felt wrong now, like a stage where the actors had forgotten their roles. Keanu's calm wasn't human calm. It was something colder, steadier, like a predator's patience. Pete lunged. It happened in a blur. Keanu released Snake, spun with the momentum of the attack, and caught Pete's wrist mid-strike. The knife hand was redirected harmlessly aside as Keanu used the younger biker's own momentum to slam him back first into the wall. The impact rattled the entire bar. The blade clattered to the floor, forgotten, as Pete slumped, head lolling, blood dripping from his scalp. 2 wolves down. 10 seconds of motion. Snake groaned on the table, trying to lift his head, but Keanu pressed him back with a hand that might as well have been iron. "I count 1 knife on the floor," Keanu said, scanning the room with surgical calm. 2 guns, 1 set of brass knuckles. Military habit. I pay attention. The casual mention of military training tightened every gut in the room. Rick swallowed hard. Danny's hand froze near his belt. Bulldog's shoulders heaved like a bull before the charge. "Walk away," Keanu said, voice low but commanding. "Take your injured and go. Or stay and see how much worse this gets." The wolves stood in silence. Predator and prey had traded places, and they all knew it. Bulldog's lips peeled back in a snarl. He couldn't let this stand. Years of ruling by fear demanded an answer. "You don't know who you're messing with," Danny spat, though his voice wavered. Keanu's eyes found him, still, sharp, dissecting. "Neither do you." Rick shuffled closer to the door, torn between loyalty and instinct. Pete whimpered against the wall. Snake's breath came in ragged gasps. Bulldog stood rooted, fury at war with a creeping realization they weren't in control. "You think you can walk in here, take down my lieutenant, my kid, and walk out?" Bulldog growled. "You just signed your death warrant." Keanu's face was unreadable. "No, you did that when you came to my table." Danny's trembling hand slid behind his back, emerging with a revolver. The sight of the gun sent Frank to his knees behind the bar, dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "Now!" Danny barked, sweat dripping down his face. "Let's see how tough you are." But Keanu only smiled, thin, cold, inhuman. "You just made the worst decision of your life." The revolver trembled in Danny's grip. He shouted louder, trying to drown out his own fear. "Shut up. I got the gun. I'm in control." Keanu tilted his head, voice calm, pitying. "Are you? Because from here, you look like a child playing with his father's toy." Bulldog barked at Danny. "Do it. Waste him. We'll dump the body in the woods." Snake raised his bloody face, croaked. "Kill him. Kill him now." Keanu's hand pressed Snake harder into the table, silencing him. His voice dropped, cold as a grave. "Let me explain something to you." The bar seemed to hold its breath. "My name is John Wick." The words hit like a gunshot. The wolves froze. Recognition flickered in Danny's eyes, then dread. Legends whispered in back rooms. Hush warnings passed among criminals, the name they used for the thing that hunted monsters. Danny's hands shook so hard the barrel wavered. "You're lying," he stammered. "Wick's just a story. A boogeyman." Keanu's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Am I?" Bulldog roared, charging. His bulk thundered toward the booth, fists like wrecking balls. Keanu moved like water. One sidestep, one twist, and Bulldog's momentum carried him headlong into splintering wood. The table exploded under his weight. Glass shattered. The bar shook with the impact. Bulldog lay in the wreckage, groaning, blood pooling beneath his head. 3 down, Keanu said softly. 2 to go. Danny's finger jerked on the trigger. The hammer fell with a click. Empty chamber. "You forgot to load," Keanu observed. "Rookie mistake." Before Danny could blink, Wick twisted a revolver from his hand, stripped the rounds, and let them fall one by one onto the floor, each metallic ping like a funeral bell. Cheap ammunition anyway, Wick said. Might not have killed me. Just made me angry. Danny staggered back, pale, muttering. Please, we didn't know. We didn't know it was you. No, Wick agreed. You didn't. Rick flattened himself against the wall, eyes darting to the exit. But Wick's gaze caught him like a snare. Where are you going, Rick? Rick froze. I wasn't. You were leaving your brothers to die alone. Wick's voice was ice. So much for loyalty. Pete groaned from the floor. Snake bled into the table. Bulldog twitched in the wreckage. Danny collapsed against a jukebox, face wet with sweat. You wanted to fight, Wick said, voice steady. But what you got was judgment. Everything you've done, the rackets, the families you hurt, the people you terrorized, this is a bill coming due. He placed the empty revolver on the bar, deliberate, like setting down a gavel. You've got two options. Option 1, I finish this, and the Iron Wolves disappear permanently. Option 2, you live, but you confess every crime, every victim. You turn yourselves in. The silence was suffocating. You choose, Wick said. Rick's breath came fast, shallow. I'll confess, he blurted. I'll tell them everything. Danny nodded frantically, tears streaking his face. Me too. I'll cooperate. Just don't kill me. Snake spat blood. Cowards, he rasped. Better to die on your feet than rat on your brothers. That's your choice, Wick said. Sirens wailed outside now, red and blue lights painting the bar's windows. The wolves had minutes, seconds, before judgment passed. Pete groaned. What about our families? They'll be protected, Wick answered, if you cooperate. But one slip, one return to the life, and you won't see me coming next time. The sirens grew louder. The choice was made. The police burst through the doors, weapons drawn. What they found defied explanation. 3 men broken but alive, 2 more kneeling with hands behind their heads, and in the corner booth, a man quietly reading under a hanging bulb. Frank pointed. Self-defense. They attacked him. The officers cuffed the survivors. Paramedics rushed Bulldog and Pete. Rick and Danny said nothing, already rehearsing confessions that would save their lives. Keanu Reeves closed meditations, slipped the napkin into place, and rose. Sir, an officer said, we'll need your statement. Of course, Keanu replied, voice calm as ever. I was drinking, reading. They started a fight. I defended myself. The cop looked around at the carnage. Minimal, he asked, doubtful. Keanu's sad smile cut like glass. You should see what happens when I'm not being minimal. Outside, the rain fell harder, washing the blood from the lot, carrying it into darkness. By morning, only whispers would remain. And somewhere along Highway 101, John Wick rode into the storm, the legend growing longer in his wake.